So, hello and welcome to this episode of the Grow Free with Emma B podcast. I record a podcast each month that is in line with the theme that we have in the Grow Free community. And this month, our theme is support. And I invite a guest, or sometimes more than one, to come and discuss that theme with me for this podcast. And this podcast itself is a support. It's one of the resources that is made available to our community members and actually anyone. It's public and out there for free for people to find and use. But it's one of the resources that provides part of the support that we have in the community. The Grow Free community brings together professional and lived experience of trauma. We have a backbone of courses that raise awareness and give education around what is trauma, what's happening to us when we get stuck with certain habits and patterns and reactions. And these courses educate and give options of practices, resources, things we can do to build ourselves up and bring in new ways of relating, new ways of behaving to these old habits. Alongside the courses, we also have peer support sessions, so regular sessions that people going through the same journey can come together, share about their experiences, feel heard, feel held, feel seen, offer feedback, feel their value in what they have to share back to other members. We have events and activities that reconnect us with nature and with the natural support that is around us all the time. And one of the big things that we like to do is let people know there's choices. There's, the theme of recovering from trauma can seem like a big, serious thing. But actually, there are so many different ways, and often unexpected ways, that we can bring healing, that we can transform, find our support again. So it's quite interesting to bring together different people and different practices in these kind of unexpected ways, and let us see that we can find healing in almost anything that we're doing. So why is support the theme for this month? It's been a lot to do with my own experience. I would say in this last, couple of months, I've started to tap into and find, again, a much deeper level of support. And it's come about through different things, but some of it, singing lessons with one of my guests here today, Madeleine Besson, where it feels like the ways that Madeleine's been asking me to use my body and find my breath has helped me process a birth trauma, which wasn't one of the kind of experiences like high up on my radar of this is something that needs healed. But the shift has been utterly profound and immense, and helped me realize, what it feels like is that being born premature, being taken away from my mum, put into a kind of mechanical incubator. It feels like that experience laid this foundation for life of really not expecting support to be available. I can see Madeleine's cat.
Somebody's giving support, yes.
Giving her support, tickling her face there. So yeah, there's been a real kind of shift in my ordinary moments, and even just asking questions of people, really, easy questions that I would find really difficult, things I would find just like almost impossible to ask or say to people because I felt they wouldn't want to help, or they would be angry. It's starting to shift, and there's an ease coming in, and a kind of, they might actually want to be involved in this, or it's just a whole different kind of underpinning to my relationship with people. So that's been going on for me recently. The other thing is that in the community, we're stepping up our peer support offering. We brought in a really beautiful course called Peer to Peer in this last year. Some of our members have been through that and are now starting to co-facilitate some of the courses we run. So we have a model here that, we have sort of professionally and, personally designed courses that can then empower people with experience of trauma to have a way of offering their support back to others. Again, by finding our value in our experience and being able to offer that out, we feel more supported by our own experience. I know my experience in trauma has often felt like my body, my experience of feeling like I'm failing often has undermined me. I didn't feel supported by my own body or my own reactions or my own behavior. So yeah, the other thing is we've got our long-awaited animation due out in May, which brings in the theme of support and connection. This whole thing of us humans being interwoven into the whole fabric of the world and our universe, being part of, and the support that our part in this whole big picture offers us. So all these things are super exciting. It's a beautiful time, and I really feel like this community is being supported. It's offering support, and people want to support it and get involved. So it's a really awesome time at the moment. And I'm joined then today to speak about support by Madeline, as I said, and by Deborah Armstrong, both of whom have been on previous podcast episodes. And my first question to them today is, ladies, and I might just throw this out and let either of you come in, and I don't imagine there'll be a fist fight over who comes in first. I'm sure you'll be supportive of each other, but just interested, what's been your process of getting to know your support? Did you always feel supported? How has connecting to the support available to you changed your experience?
If I can start by answering my experience there. Very early in life, I felt extremely well supported. And then that support disappeared overnight. And it took to my adult life to actually start to recover that. And I suspect, knowing that it was there, knowing that I had experienced that before, was very key to finding my way back to it. So I'm very grateful that I had that experience, but it was truly traumatic when overnight it just wasn't there anymore. And going from feeling totally supported, totally loved, totally held to, where am I in this crazy world where everything's upside down and there's no support? Because I grew up in a family where there really wasn't support, there wasn't affection, there wasn't love. There were a lot of demands put on me to be an adult from about 5-7 years old, and to be a carer from that time as well. So coming from that experience of feeling completely supported to then totally unsupported and having to do things that I had no idea how to do, it's gone full circle in adulthood to rediscover the support. And I think the things that got me there were pretty dramatic and traumatic. And what had to happen in order for me to rediscover the support was to be put in a position where I had no clue how to support myself. And at that point, when you let go, trying to do it for yourself and go, okay, I don't know, help, then the support comes. And sometimes it comes on the back of the most unexpected things. One example of that was when I was learning to ride. Well, I knew how to ride, but re-establishing riding, and had a very serious riding accident where a horse rolled over and basically with me on his back and did a fair amount of damage. And at that point, I was in recovery for about 6 months with some quite severe physical injuries, and had to stop doing everything and let go and see what the universe did for me. And what it did was put me on a path of natural horsemanship. And I think that was my first introduction to shamanic work, because when you learn to communicate with any part of nature in a way that it understands, rather than trying to get it to speak English, which isn't a good idea, but most of us do. It's like, hey, horse, come over here. And it's like, doesn't speak that. You have to communicate with body language and love and with energy. A whole new world, or the world I used to know, started to open back up again. So my finding my way back to support was through basically being pushed off a cliff in various directions, physically, emotionally, mentally. I won't give examples of all of them here because it would take a while, but I can tell you that I have been pushed off all of those cliffs. And at the time, it was horrendous. Now, oh boy, where it took me, I'm so glad that it did. That's my long or short answer to how I found my support mechanisms.
Oh, that's amazing. For me, the support, I had support when I was a kid, and I didn't. It really depended on certain things. I didn't realize I had traumatic experiences until I was way older, because it was just normal for me. So I wasn't really conscious of that. But I had quite a few traumatic experiences, more psychologic, you say, than anything, with sicknesses around me, deaths, and it was kind of a lot of, in years, laid out in a lot of time. And I think I was in depression for a very long time. So I kind of grew up being depressed, and I didn't know it was that for a very long time. And I can say now that it's been a few years, maybe 2 or 3, that I've been better. Even more so too. So it's been a very long ride of finding my roots, my center. But in all of that time, I think the person I knew I could count on was myself, even when I was lost. There was always something that was, that was there. It was, I believed in life and I believed in the universe, and I knew there was something better out there for me at one point. There was always that knowing. So that we can say that's a kind of support, I guess. And even in the moments of doubt, you know, so many doubts, I think that was the moment that there was still that knowing, that there was something out there that was bigger than any of us, and, you know, that I could count on it somehow. And then I think, as when it comes to music and art, I think that has been huge in driving me to move forward, because of that need to create all the time, that everything needs to manifest, come out and be created, whether it be songs or paintings or whatever, the creation. And so that has always been there. And music, writing songs and singing has been for me, I would say, the biggest support, because I was able to channel everything into that. And so the singing part, learning how to sing, I started when I was 15, with classical singing classes. So, and that was very, anything that was authoritarian for me was always very hard. So I wasn't taught to work with joy. So it was always a struggle for me to exercise and to, you know, exercise my voice and practice my instruments, etc. It was always a struggle within me. And so with any teachers or whatever. But I still did it. And I went through that. And eventually I did find joy in practicing, etc. And, but vocally, it was a long ride to really find my voice. It was already there. I was always singing, and I had a voice, you know. The teachers were like, you need to sing, you have a voice, and and you have this, you're gifted with voice, etc. So I was always, you know, pulled towards that for sure. And I loved the Beatles, and I wanted to do what they were doing, you know. So that was the drive when I was about 7 until forever. I guess it'll always be the drive. But so the finding the support, like you're explaining, that you're finding pathways for your own support, Emma, through singing lessons. I find that extremely interesting, because I didn't feel that when I was learning. And maybe I wasn't conscious of it though, but there was definitely something happening, because it took me a long time to really feel comfortable in my technique vocally. And I was still singing and, you know, recording and doing shows and concerts and whatnot. But the feeling within me of really having a stable technique took me a long time. And there were so many different pathways, like totally letting go of technique, completely embracing it, et cetera, like all these extremes, and in between as well. I mean, it's just, and I think it's still ongoing, you know. There's things I'm still discovering on how to support myself and how to go through traumas, and how I realize things, you know, every day. Oh, I went through this, and this means that. And now I think I'm just in acceptance of whatever comes up. And I just go through it, because I know I'm learning something really important for me. And I'm not scared of it anymore. Whatever trauma comes up, I know that it's a gift that it is coming up. But it took me a while to understand that, for sure, that it was actually a gift. And that, and I'm even laugh sometimes when certain things come up, because it's so obvious and it's so in my face, and it brings me back to places where I'm not that person anymore, and I just see the whole, you know, the whole journey come back to here and now, and I'm like, wow, all of this for this, you know, and it just yeah, it makes me smile and just appreciate the journey more.
Beautiful from both of you. Did you have anything you wanted to pick up on, Debbie, before I?
No, I think I could talk for quite a long time about how I didn't feel supported and then found support. But I think it probably time move on to the next question, and some of it may come out.
Okay. The points that I picked up from both of you, and I just super appreciate the level of honesty you've both brought here, because one of the things that I'm finding is bringing so much support to me and to community members, and you know, anyone I imagine that you've walked alongside who's on this journey of recovering and healing, is when we share authentically and honestly our experience, it is so supportive to the other person hearing. You know, it's there's been a process for me this last few years of letting go of that feeling the need to be professional, or the facade of being professional, or this need to appear a certain way in order that people are going to find value in me, find me reliable, want to work with me as someone who can offer, you know, has something to offer. And the more I let go of that and say and show like the honesty of sometimes this, like this, I am messy. Sometimes I am messy. That's what's giving the most support. That's what's offering the most value. It's the process of learning to go through this stuff, not having never had it, not having to be completely perfect in the journey, not having to have it all sussed, but walking the walk, finding the practices. So I think, I really thank you both for sharing.
Can I make a quick comment about Madeleine and your experience? And I really appreciate what you shared of your experience. But, I suspect that because of that experience, somebody coming to you as a singing coach will have a totally different experience to the one you had learning to sing. And almost because of the experience that you've had, you will never present singing in that way to anybody else because of how it felt for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I take my pleasure in giving lessons, is that there's certain things that I don't want the people that come to me to go through, because it's no use, you don't need to go through that. There are shortcuts to avoid certain traumas and certain things that are gonna pull you back more than anything. And I mean, the thing is, it really depends on where we're at individually when we're starting to sing and we've never really taken singing classes. And the beginning is it's an effort. It's not easy. There is a certain degree of getting out of your comfort zone,
Degree.
Yeah.
A big degree.
And it depends for everyone, where they're at. It's not, there's no rules for that. And sometimes from one lesson to the other, all of a sudden there's something that shifts all of a sudden. you know. And I remember when I was taking a lot of singing lessons, I felt the need to tell my whole life to my teacher, because it felt so linked, you know, and it was like I had to tell, this is happening and this is happening, you know, and this is because everything in our lives affects our body, right? So it affects the voice. It's going to affect the voice, because the voice is, the emotion comes through the voice. You can hear if someone is in fear, if someone is in joy, if someone is in love, if someone is, you know, you'll hear it in the voice when they're talking, when they're singing. You hear all those emotions, right? So it's completely interesting, completely linked to the body and to what we go through in our emotions, the voice.
Yeah.
So that need to, and it's, things are going to happen, that need to talk about your life and to talk about the evolution you're going through while you're taking those lessons. I completely understand, and I know I'm not alone in having done that. That's how it kind of goes, you know.
I think that's one thing that I appreciate so much is, I mean, simply, I mean, I've practiced and taught yoga for a lot of years, so I've done a lot of breath work, and yet there's still something in the, I want to call it scrutiny. What you're asking me to find and do is bringing in, you know, another level of awareness around the diaphragm and the pelvic area, and a recognition of, oh my goodness, even with all that yoga practice, whenever I was breathing and aiming to be breathing in a relaxed, easy way, there's a not easiness, there's a gasping, there's a grasping, there's a need. And as we're shifting that, the parts of me that's coming up in front of you and being exposed in front of you is such young parts, such young, vulnerable, infancy parts. It, you know, it is, I've needed a very tender space, because it's literally, as soon as we start any of the exercises, I am triggered. I am on alert. You know, it might feel like simple things I'm being asked to do, but it's there. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's at a very unconscious level. And bring me back then here to another point that was coming up, was our body is designed to feel supported. Our body is designed to support us and feel supported in the energy system of this planet. And when we've had certain experiences and an imprint of a certain way of breathing comes into our body, it cuts us off from that feeling of support. If there's a tightness in our diaphragm or our pelvic floor, our body doesn't work in the same way as an instrument in this world, as an instrument with a voice. And this is just bringing us right into what we've got for our second question, is how do you guide others to find their support? What particular challenges do you find? I think you've started going into that, Madeline. Bringing in technique. You often say, if you get the technique, that will be your support in order to express yourself. Is there anything else you want to say?
Well, I mean, it was really interesting what you were saying about, you know, the body and all the traumas that it can hold, you know, and some of them are very unconscious. So there's the energetic work that we can do. There's the diet, there's the exercising, you know, and then there's also, how do you say in English? Osteopathic, yeah, with the skeleton and the muscular.
Yeah.
And I talk about, I'm saying this because I've started working with one and it's changing my life. She's excellent. I've seen a lot of them that have not done anything to me, but she is really, and it's very, and you know, I see her like every 3 weeks. It's very small movements that she does. And it's, she was repositioning everything, and I'm noticing the changes in my life and my thoughts, in my emotions, in the way I carry myself, in the way I go about my day. I think it depends for everybody, of course, but the body, to be in connection with the body on a very physical level and feeling the fluids within us. And that's why singing is a great approach to feeling all of that, because you have to be connected with your body to understand where is what and what's going on. And your whole body is the instrument. Okay, it's the vocal cords. All right. But there's so much more going on that we need to work with. And to be in touch with our body that way is amazing, because you're really listening to it. And you're having to dig deep to really work with it and hear it, and feel your body supporting yourself, and you supporting your body also, you know. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Absolutely.
Basically, supporting people. There is no formula. You have to meet people where they are. And that will depend on how recent were their traumatic experiences, how far they've got through processing it. Even maybe it was 10 years ago, but they haven't really processed it at all, or they've just stuffed it all down and it's trapped in the body somewhere. So because most of the work I do is intuitive and guided, there is no formula. I have many tools that I can pull out. I haven't done osteopathy. I have done Cherokee body work, which I trained in. And the father of modern osteopathy, A.T. Still, went and studied with the Cherokee and other indigenous tribes and went back to America and invented osteopathy. So I recognize the same small movements and also larger movements. And when you're doing Cherokee work, you are feeling where the trauma is stuck in the body part, and you're gently starting to ease the tension. You know, you can feel where the edges of that trauma are, and you gently start manipulating and easing the edges. And then suddenly, quite often people tell you the story, or they just burst into tears, or they breathe a big sigh of relief because they're letting it go. But everybody is totally different. And it really depends on the individual's reaction to the trauma. You may have to do something almost the opposite. If you've got two people who've been through the same thing, and one person's reaction is to freeze, and the other person's reaction is to run, you've got to do the opposite. Because the one that's running, and they may be physically very still, but they're actually running in their head, and they've left. As soon as they've turned up for trauma therapy, mentally, they've left the room. They've probably left the planet. They're so scared. And in that case, you've got to interrupt that pattern somehow in a way that works with the individual, which could be singing, it could be physical movement, it could be some body work. It might be doing something totally unexpected to, but whoa, hang on, I need to focus in the room. What's this crazy woman going to do next? You know, could be anything. Whereas the person who's frozen, if you suddenly do something unexpected, you're going to freeze them even more. You're going to drive them further into it. So it's very, very individual, depending on the recentness of the trauma, the amount of processing the person has done, and their instinctive reactions to trauma, which is different for all of us. So how do you help the person? Basically meet them where they're at with love and compassion. And then find the key to unlock, to start to help them to unlock. Because if you really want to support somebody, it has to go at the rate that's supportive to them. It has to go with the tools that are supportive to them. It has to go with great feel and compassion so that you can feel when you're coming up against a boundary and back off. It doesn't matter if you're doing physical hands-on work. You're never going to push somebody through a boundary that they're not ready to go through. Also, you have to know when to support and when to back off in another way, because there's a scale of being supportive, and there's a point at which being supportive is unsupportive. Let me explain. I studied, as part of my trauma therapy, I studied natural horsemanship, and I have a lovely horse. Thinks he knows best, or certainly did when I got him, about everything, quite often right. Went away on natural horsemanship training with him, and I was given the task of getting him to jump a jump. So he goes up to the jump, goes, oh, cool, that's too much effort, kicks it down, walks through. Oh, great. So the trainer goes, oh, okay, we'll give you a cross-country jump. Now, cross-country jumps, those who don't know about jumps, they're nailed solid. You can't kick them down. So he'd walk up, kick it, and oh, it's still there. Darn, can't do that one. So you back him off, send him to the jump, up to the jump, stop, no jump. Okay, back him off, up to the jump, crunch, halt, no jump. And I'm doing this, and I don't know, I think we got about to 99 times where he backed off, and I'd sent him, and I finally had got the point where it's like, just bloody do the jump. And he jumped it. And from the far end of the field, I suddenly heard this, yay! And that was the trainer who was with somebody else who'd seen what had happened. And what happened was, I finally got the point I was not going to put up with any more nonsense. And he jumped. Now, you might think, well, why didn't she tell you that was what was going on and that was what you needed to do? Because it would have taken much less time. I needed to find that for myself. I needed to be pushed to the point that I went, just do it. Now, so being supportive is a real skill, because being really supportive means empowering somebody. So you want to challenge them enough, but not too much. You want to help them enough, but not too much. There is a real balance and a real love in it, and a real joy in finding that sweet spot. And a lot of shamanic or indigenous practices, and I use the two words interchangeably, are about pushing people way out of their comfort zone. Nearly all shamanic ceremony does that. It's designed to do that. And it's this pushing somebody out of their comfort zones. They go, I can't do this. And then enabling them to find that they can. Because they've either got the inner strength or they turn outwards and they ask for strength, and it always comes. But unless you are willing to allow the person to find that moment, they're not going to have that empowering experience. So being supportive is a very interesting thing. And I think it's a journey of love and compassion, really, and wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I would say watching the elders in the States and the elders here in the UK, Celtic elders, has just been such a journey of watching them find that balance. Mm-hmm.
I think as you finish there, you've brought in like 2 points that came up for me as both of you were speaking. When you ended there, you spoke about the elders and Indigenous practices for healing trauma. But we could also say just Indigenous practices and ways of life and the wisdom that is, without romanticizing and saying, they were perfect, but there is a lot of wisdom in many Indigenous cultures that we could say we don't necessarily display kind of in many modern cultures. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of what we're speaking about here in terms of supporting someone through trauma are the same tools and ways of relating to people that really is required in parenting. Mm-hmm. And my greatest hope for my daughter is that she's been born into a time here where we're starting to learn these ways and starting to bring in parenting that is more supportive, and we can prevent actually a lot of the trauma, the imprints of trauma that have kind of been ingrained in I don't know how many generations. And the other thing that was coming up for me as you both were speaking was like the simplicity. As I've been writing sort of the Grow Free program and different courses, there's times where I've written a lot and it's, it kind of feels like this fairly complex thing to recover from trauma. I'm not saying it's not, but the more time I've gone into it, there's also just a real simplicity of really all we need is to be held and heard and seen. Mm. In a nutshell, there's a lot of what's going on that is the key. Can we hear and hold and see those vulnerable parts? And often when we do that, it supports people to find, we find our own resources. And you also spoke more about the complexity, the wisdom. There are steps, and this reflects back to my yoga training, the teaching and therapy training. There's so much Indigenous wisdom in those traditions as well, where it really recognizes you meet the person where they are. There's a vast amount of tools in yoga. A lot of people think it's a practice you do on the mat, move your body in certain ways. But no, it's very subtle in terms of breath, in terms of visualization. You could bring any tool in if you've got the knowing and the understanding. It's about supporting people back into connection with themselves, and what you're speaking about reflects where we're at with the program in Grow Free, in terms of it's about offering some education. How does our nervous system work? What is trauma? How does it impact us? How do we get stuck in patterns of freeze and fight and flight? There's an education, and there's also learning how do we activate a sense of safety. I think, Debbie, when you were speaking there, about when to push, when to stand back, when to offer love, we're creating a container for someone. And when someone feels safe and challenged at the same time, then there's an opportunity for magic. So that's one of the first steps. We have education, then we look at, we let people know we need to feel safe in order to change our habits. We need to feel safe in order to learn. Once we work out, we have some skills around that, then there's different ways we can practice then resourcing. How can we start challenging? And the more resourced we are, the more we can resolve those past experiences. The wisdom that we know that we have now is amazing, right? It's a really amazing, from where we are culturally, globally, you know, what's starting to happen with so many people being able to resolve this. And both spoken about like the radical shifts in your experience and perception, and from where you are now and looking back over your life of, you know, with this awareness and this level of digestion, the different choices and behaviors we have available to us now. So as we kind of move towards the, you know, the end of this conversation, where do you guys see the world going? I don't think any of us can really know, because we're creating it now. We're not necessarily going to be stuck in repeating a lot of the patterns and habits that have, you know, repeated over history. No pressure on you. Whatever you say here doesn't have to be the way for this new earth or anything. But, you know, as I'm waking up to the amount of support that's available, it feels amazing. I don't always get it. I still repeat a lot of the same patterns, but the vista, the vision opening up, the possibilities opening up are awesome and beautiful and wonderful. And community is right bang there in the middle. Singing's right there. Nature. Where do you see what would you like to see personally, even in your life, or more globally? What would you like to say?
Personally, it's very easy to forget, even if you've had all these experiences, and I'm very fortunate in the experiences I've had. It's very easy to forget on a day-to-day basis how much support there is. And I think, or what I feel, one of the things that's very important is to notice what's going on in nature around us. I was saying to Emma, I've had a very magical day today. I've had 2 different types of creatures in my house. Not everybody would be delighted by this, but I am. Millipedes and crows. I had a crow that came in, and then I had quite an experience persuading the poor crow which way would actually let it leave. And interestingly, both of these creatures are black. And shamanically, they both talk about magic. And there's real magic. And I think there's real magic in this house that I'm working on, even though at the moment I'm living in a building site. And there are moments, and I think I was having a moment of going, it'll never come together. And immediately these 2 sets of creatures turn up. It's like, aha, the magic's right there. Because the millipede, the story of millipede is that something that may not look very attractive is actually absolutely wonderful. So the more we can all listen to nature, the more we can stop and notice what nature is doing round about us, the more magic is going to happen. And I've just had, in this last week, I was thinking, I'd really like a supportive community physically where I now am. And I don't know, and I haven't had that many chances to meet the people, and because of whatever, they're hiding, they're behind a mask, they're whatever. And then I bumped into a neighbor and discovered that there's 2 shamanic people within walking distance of each other. Isn't that exciting? That we are very much on a wavelength, both living off grid, both doing a different version, but having similar thoughts and feelings. So it's like, wow, sometimes it's just this that's getting in the way. And the magic's all there. We're just not seeing it because we're not looking at it. We're looking with the wrong set of eyes, I think is what the elders would say. So it's all there. It's What do we need to do to look through the right glasses or the right eyes at the world? I mean, I had a moment this week when I was just so frustrated with something. I was saying, and I walked out, and I have a tree, a very old tree growing against this old farmhouse. And it had blossomed overnight. And I just stopped, because it doesn't matter how frustrated I was with what was going on. It's like, that is magical. That is so beautiful. And it has a broken branch. And even the broken branch is really badly broken. You know, you'd think it would be dead. It's covered in blossom. And it's like, wow, the will to live and create beauty despite all challenges. So I think the more we can slow down and tune into nature in whatever way works for us, the better. And we'll create something truly magical, particularly if those of us with different skills and talents share our little piece of magic with the others, because I think this is a case where 2 and 2 makes about 8 or 10. When we put all those pieces of magic together, we just get something extraordinary.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, bang on. That's how I feel as well. I mean, nature is just there's everything there, and it's a wonderful teacher, and everything's there. And I mean, the more we connect with it, and like you're saying, Debbie, with slowing down and listening and being with the movements and rhythms and sounds of nature, that just opens so much. And working with it, you know, growing your food and just taking your time to look at the beauty of everything that's around. That's yeah, makes just such a difference in the mind and the body, in the thoughts and the emotions, everything, in the energies and how we receive, you know, information, whatever it is. Nature is just everything's there, you know. And the more we look at it, the more we see magic, that's for sure. I mean, it's all there. The colors, you know, the sounds, it's amazing. There's so much that we're not seeing yet. And some people are, and you know, but it's even more beautiful than the eyes can see for the moment.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think it's going to get more beautiful. We might have to go through some hard times, you know, but it's okay. We need to go through it. It needs to come out. The you know, all the pardon my French, but the shit needs to come out, you know.
Without the darkness,
yeah,
you cannot see the light.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't know where I was hearing that, but it's like the sunrise, you know, you can't have a sunrise without and being impatient that the dark part is still, or the sunset, you know, the sunrise, the dark part is still not lit. Well, yeah, it's part of the sunrise. It'll be lit later. You just, you know, patience.
I think Zach Bush said that
right
recently,
okay, yeah,
but many probably have. Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to see it that way, you know, like the dark and the light, there's the balance there. And I think it's a lot comes back to balance and finding that balance a lot.
I would also say that it is the dark times in my life that have pushed me to find the greatest light.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, you know, if it had not been for them, and they were truly dark and truly traumatic in many ways.
Yeah.
But they pushed me to where I needed to be. So a personal learning is not to be so afraid of the dark.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's a gift when you're going through trauma, or or remembering something that was really hurting, and it's coming back to the surface, and it's very extremely uncomfortable in certain situations, and it is a gift because we're able to really go through it consciously if we're seeing it that way. And that's, I mean, if we choose to see it that way, again, but then it's like, and that's also, well, I'm going to talk about it. The French elections right now, where I am in France, it's very dark. It's very dark. What's in store for us in the next few months, but who knows what's going to happen? Maybe we have to go through this, and it's okay, and it's like, there's this, I'm feeling this need to inject love into all of this so much, and but at the same time seeing the dark and not being afraid to look at it,
Yes.
it's because that's how we go through it, and how that's how the light can really be, just so that we're actually putting the light on the dark. I'm not inventing anything. So many people say that, but it's so true, and it can be felt and understood on so many different levels, the micro and the macro,
Forgive me, because we're not in France, I don't particularly know what's happening in France. So what are some of the challenges that you're looking at the moment?
Well, it's without getting into the politics of it all, basically there's no one is really happy with the results we have, but we still have those two people, and it's the second round. We have 2 rounds in France. First, there's like about a little more than 10 candidates, and then it goes to 2 on the second round 2 weeks after. And the 2 people that were most voted for, people don't want to vote for them. I mean, the majority of French people are not for them, which is it's very divided right now. And a lot of people do not know what to do with these 2 options. Some people do, but it's kind of, and it's interesting. There's like, the 3/3 of divided in 3/3 kind of right now. So and I mean, it's kind of extremes, and world agendas that are not for our highest good as humanity, on one side, and the other side, an extreme, where there might be a chance there too, and in both cases that there might be a chance for the light to come in and justice to prevail. Who knows, but the energetics right now are just, people are, it's low.
But in a way, I think it kind of reflects back to what you were both speaking about in terms of the frame and trusting the darkness.
Yeah.
And that sometimes, like, we have to have a level of darkness or pressure to
Absolutely.
show up that this isn't about which 2 candidates got elected in, perhaps, but it's shining a light on the system.
Absolutely.
Shining light on a system, and we've maybe needed to get to that point where enough people are kind of going, something's really broken here.
Exactly.
And I think what you guys both spoke about there was around having a trust in the process, whether it's our own personal trauma and whatever is coming up, but really trusting wherever we are, because the key always is to be okay with where we are now in order to get to where we want to go. We can never get to where we want to go if we're so scared with where we are now. It's finding that trust in the here,
And that's one of the things that I've been wanting to say this whole time, the present moment. For me, getting into that present moment as much as possible in the day, in my conscious day, you know, I mean, that's a big key in being okay with everything around us. What you're saying there, the present moment is just so important. And nature helps us to be in that present moment.
Yeah. And depending where we are in our journey, sometimes that can mean being okay with being really unokay.
Yeah.
Being okay with feeling safe with feeling really unsafe. And then we might be in a different part of our journey where actually being here in the present moment means absolutely joyously connecting with that bird song or diving into a gorgeous river, you know, and but allowing more and more, wherever it is we are.
Yeah.
I think there is a point to realizing that things really are not okay. That is the catalyst for making progress and change.
Yeah.
Because when it is hidden that things are really not okay, nothing's going to change. But when it comes out into the light that things are really not okay, that's when you can start to do something and move in a different direction.
Yes.
And so that is one of the uses or effects of darkness, is to show
Catalyst
that you probably want to head in a different direction.
Yeah. Totally.
However you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And that's when getting to your quiet place, if you go, okay, I am not okay in this, whatever it is. So you then get to your quiet place and go, so where is it that I can head? Where is this point of light that's drawing me? And you set your focus and the point of light will show up. You see, I was afraid of the dark. Very much afraid of the dark, and I was claustrophobic. And when my teacher told me that my job was to learn to lead Sweat Lodge, I just about fell off my chair. And as part of my training, I had an experience where I had to trust and crawl inside a very dark hole. It didn't appeal to me at all. You can probably imagine it's very small, very cramped, and very dark. You can't see if it actually opens up and gets big enough. And it does, but it's a very narrow entrance. And I remember one time visiting that hole. It was a different time of year. And crawling in, and there was light in it. And I thought, oh, there must be, you know, a gap in the undergrowth or something. I've never seen that before. So I sat there and I meditated and did what I meant to do, crawled back out again, turned around to say thank you to the energies in there. And it was pitch black. And the message that I got at that moment was, whenever you need it, the light will be there. And all you have to do is ask. And that was a very profound moment. And I don't think that's just for me.
No.
It's for all of us. But we do need to ask.
Yeah. And that brings me so beautifully. You guys, it feels like you've absolutely orchestrated this conversation. Like every time I wrote down a note, he's like, okay, Debbie covered it there. Oh, Madeline's got that one. And where you've drawn us to here at the close of this discussion is, you know, asking for the light. And what I've written here is, again, support, the theme of our conversation, and how none of us need to be superheroes on our own. Some of this journey, or much of it, is around learning to, one, ask, and perhaps two, discern. Discern, where is the support? I'm sure all of us have experiences where we've reached out in ways that, or in places where, you know, what the support that came back was an unwise, you know, or even harmful. And this is, again, coming back to appreciating the level of honesty you've both shared here today. This is an absolute key in the Grow Free community, is these kind of conversations and taking off the costumes and the facades and being really open and saying, well, this is my journey, and these are my struggles, and these are where I found answers, and this is what I'm doing. When we're in a challenge or a struggle, part of parenting and part of that childhood develop, infants look, you know, when they're scared, they look at you, they're looking for your support. Are you showing them the reassurance? And in my own journey, there's been times where I've been looking for the right teacher, the best teacher, and it had to be someone. It wasn't like the person here in Aberdeen wasn't okay. The answers were somewhere exotic, like India or whatever. Where was this person going to be? And no, it's in the people who show me who they really are, and they're walking right beside me, like you guys. You've shown me who you are. You've shown me where your struggles are. You've not hidden where there's been depression, and you've walked, you're walking through, we're still walking through. And that when we get shown that we don't have to be perfect, and we can show those parts of ourselves that feel like, if I show this person this, they're gonna run or walk, or this just, you know. But when you give me permission to show you the most messy and scared part, you then also give me the permission and the opportunity and the strength to find the strongest parts. And that's what communities are about, and that's what the Grow Free community is about. And let's go there, guys. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It was deep and practical and dark and light, all of it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure, and very nice to meet you, Debbie.
Lovely to meet you, Madeleine. And yes, thank you, Emma, for organising this and coordinating the group and organising the internet, particularly for me, because I'm not that up on it. And yeah, how wonderful to have a connection of so many points of light, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely to meet you, Madeleine. Really, truly.
I have a feeling you may meet in person before too long.
I will come and see
you guys
in Scotland, that's for sure. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thanks to all of you for listening in.